Greetings, fellow citizens of the world. Bricky here today, joining you from Germany as I'm doing my third video now, breaking down the Disney design and styling of World Showcase, which is slowly becoming my absolute favorite Disney park, as many of you had predicted. In the past two videos, we have started from Spaceship Earth and slowly worked our way around. And I think right now we're on our last leg, the last 33% of the World Showcase, where we're going through and I'm breaking down for you how all of this design works. How do I know this? I've been to Disneyland over 700 times, where I study the park, its architecture, and its design, doing over 200 videos, 100 different podcasts, probably even more, breaking down the design of all of this. And just for good measure, I was an illustrator for the Wonderground Gallery at Disney for a few years. So I've spent the last decade of my life studying the design of Disney parks. This is my first time walk around World Showcase. I'd encourage you to watch the other two videos, as I would try not to repeat some of the same design theories, but keep exploring all this and sharing with you my first look at this magnificent theme park, which I can't understand why kids would ever have any fun here, because it is so adult oriented and themed. But I can see that they're changing that with Ratatouille and some of the last things that they've done, such as putting Frozen in here and various other properties the kids know. All right, we just are rolling through Germany here, which I was kind of expecting Germany would have like something massive and not just these little food huts. Wow. I purposely stopped at the end of Spain because I thought, oh, this is Spain. What's going to happen in Germany? Hey friends, Bricky the editor here. Let me explain something to you. This is my first time ever walking through World Showcase. And when I came through, the very first food cart that I didn't understand was a temporary structure said Canada. And then I went to the Canadian pavilion. So in my mind, I was thinking the food cart would tell you what pavilion you were going into. I just left Germany, which I thought was Spain, and therefore that's where my confusion lies. I want to keep everybody in mind. It's my first walkthrough. I'm living this, I'm filming this, I'm trying to be entertaining while doing this, all the first time through a camera. It's not about perfection, it's about exploration. So with that, please give me a little bit of grace and be polite in the comments. I just wanted to show you a super fan's first reaction, not somebody that has perfection for World Showcase. Now back to Bricky in the Parks from Bricky in the Studio. So far, the biggest shock has been the Morocco. Morocco was so amazing. Definitely a part of the world that I'm not familiar with. And now, speaking of, I'm in Kenya. I just had a good friend that recently went on a honeymoon where he went to Kenya, 2 weeks on safari, and I was just fascinated to hear his tales. All right, so now we're in a more rural type of infrastructure where we can see, in the past, we haven't seen the exposed lights and power source, which means we're definitely in a land with less resources. Therefore, they're going to show more of how things work. It's not quite as refined as some of the more established, more wealthier countries that have the money and infrastructure to sort of hide the ugliness. We have these peculiar, not very well designed Disney rocks. Hey, I've been pretty positive. I'm allowed a couple of complaints, right? They just don't have a lot of tooth and scale to them. They just look like a couple of mounds to break out the vision. We have this refreshment outpost. As it's now almost 1 o'clock, the park has gotten much busier. Let's look into this waterway. Okay, this is one of my favorite design tricks. This is what I call the bend in the road. There's obviously something back there where maybe they park the boats, maintenance the boats. There's something back there we're not supposed to see. So to make this world feel endless, that it is, never ending and we could just walk around it and explore it forever, this bend in the road means that we're not supposed to see what exists over here. If I really stare through the brush, I can see a little bit of skylight coming through, which means that this is a perfect way for you not to be able to see the parts that they don't want you to see. This bend in the road exists a lot in Disney parks. There's actually one when you go into the Star Wars Galaxy's Edge shops. There's a bend in the road so you don't see the other end of the shops, which therefore makes it feel a lot larger. We've talked a lot about how the shoreline has so many S-curves and docks that protrude and scale back, creating so much more distance than what really exists. And over here's a great example of placing this little island here. And that island over on the far side, for our eye, it creates this horizontal stacking, which makes, if you see over at the Swan, what is it called? I've never stayed there before. I know it's designed by the architect Michael Graves, who did a building in my hometown of Louisville, Kentucky, the Humana building. Swan and Dolphin, I think it's called. I don't know. All right, I got it. Swan and Dolphin. Took me a second, but I knew the architect, Michael Graves. That's got to count for something, right? We're going to get through this. We're going to get through this brutally, as comment-free as possible. Somebody's laughing at me right now. But as you see how all of these pieces push back, there is a horizontal line that your eye is reading. Your eye uses that to create the depth to determine how far that is off of everything else that you've seen your entire life. Determining depth is a skill that you have learned by just living and exploring the world. Disney takes that skill set that you have learned and they manipulate it to change the way that you read these parks. We've now just wandered over into the edge of India. I see some sort of ornate temple back there, which I'm excited to see. This has an interesting slope on it. I always love to talk about how Disney is in charge of all the landscaping and how they decide where the hills, the valleys, and the slopes are. Now this is some rock work. This is interesting. It feels very different versus those just mounds. But now I see those mounds are to hide from visitors on the main thoroughfare that are dining and having lunch, maybe from the refreshing outpost, that they won't see. This is where they launch some of the boats. So everything makes sense here when you figure out what part of the Disneyland story and magic trick it's trying to either pull off or what emotion it's trying to invoke. Once again, here's the perfect version of that shoreline I've been talking about. This S-curve here, if that's just a straight line, your eye just reads it like, oh, it's just right there. But this S-curve adds that adventure. Therefore, your brain breaks it up into 3 different little parcels of land, matching over there with that island that is isolated out there. They decided to put that island there. They know that putting an island breaks the water up into 2 chapters, making the other side of the island feel further away. And man, that harmonious stuff looks really big from this angle. All right, it looks like we're going to wander in another one of these courtyards. Let's get the camera angled right up at the beginning of this courtyard so we can see what sort of magic trick they're doing to push it back as far as possible to create a scale that doesn't exist. We've been breaking down a lot of these. Aha, China. Nice. All right, let me get as far away from possible so we can really break down what this is that we're looking at. We'll come over here by these little merchant carts, stare around. This is my first look. This is my first look. Oh, yeah, okay, I know this gimmick. So we've been talking a lot about the 3 levels of storytelling. This big facade, this big framework here, this is designed to push that temple back. If this framework wasn't here and you could just stand and look straight up at the temple, it would not feel as tall or as far away. You also see that both sides of that bridge are tapering our eyes back to even push this temple back further. You'd be surprised how not tall that temple is, but with all of these gimmicks going on, it feels really, really size appropriate and feels pretty magical from this angle. I also wouldn't be surprised if these sidewalk squares don't slightly taper. See those strong lines? Those strong lines are going to a vanishing point, which is right inside the middle of that doorway. So everything that you're seeing is pushing your eye as far away as possible to create as much distance as possible. Let's go around in a non-intrusive way and check out this little hidden garden. Oh, we see a photo up here. Hello. So we have this little hidden garden that exists over here. And then once again, look at the different levels. Hold on.
Sorry,
oh, I'm just doing photos. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
So here we can see the different stacking of the multiple walkways that adds to the 3 rings of the temple. And at the bottom of each ring of the temple, there are supportive rings that just add more scale. And then there are those like curved tiles that are coming at us. And then all of that ornate decoration inside. This is phenomenal. Looking over here at all the sloping Chinese style roofs with the different colors. We have the different mustard, yellow, green, and royal blue. I'll get out of here so people can get their photos taken. When I do this, I try my hardest to not get in anybody's way. If what I'm doing ruins the magic for somebody else, I have defeated the purpose of what I'm trying to do. I'm gonna run across here so I don't ruin their pic. As much as I want to walk down that sidewalk, people are taking photos, so I'm gonna resist and maybe come around the backside here. Yeah, look at this. This is that again, guys. There's this. And I always mean guys, non-gender specific. We have this bush here. We have this bush over here. Once again, creating that framing so that it pushes back what the main focus of our optical range should be. Sorry, a lot of talking out here. All right, we're coming down into another one of these courtyards, and you see how these 2 roofs are protruding out. That is creating, once again, that framework. How this building has that angle. We've seen there's always this building, right, that's at that sort of off angle, creating that first turn in the cul-de-sac, which is then going to push all the other buildings around. As we've talked about in other videos of the series, every 8 to 15 to 20 feet, give or take, there's no exact science. The buildings always shift into a different exterior. Hey, if there's no rope, you're allowed to go up the stairs. Look at that view. Look at that view. We are living in it. That is great. You can see I don't want to put my mask on. It's hard with a camera in your hands. We'll just poke our head in. Oh, that is beautiful. So there's always this building right here at the edge of all these cul-de-sacs where you create this line space, right? That building there, as well as these 2 buildings that are parallel to one another, which are creating that line space that's pushing back. Right? And now that we have these 2 roofs that drop into frame, it is just designed so that your brain pushes back. Now let's see if our forced perspective looks different when we follow it back in the opposite direction. I mean, already from where I'm at, I don't know how it looks for you at home, but that bridge already looks short and stubby, whereas before it looked long and adventurous. Friends, do you remember just a minute ago how far back everything seemed when I did my first look inside of this frame? Yes, these are definitely, look, you can tell now when we're looking back, these tiles, these different paths, these 5 different paths, they are absolutely tapering back to make a more narrow walkway. Fascinating. If you've showed up for all 3 of these, I hope you're having as much fun as I am. I know I'm focusing a lot on the forced perspective of things. It's just I'm realizing that they're just really exemplifying a lot of the patterns that I've come to study from Disney's theme park design, how it's a more extreme version of real world architecture. All right, we are now, I love this, where 2 worlds collide. We're leaving the edge of China, and we are coming up in some place that looks way more European, Norwegian, I'm gonna assume someplace up in those parts where people look like Thor. Oh man, look at that building. Gods of the Vikings. Sign me up, bro. Look at this. All right, not gonna break it down because you guys know why all of this magic trick is working. I'm gonna assume that back here is where Frozen is because I can see a lot of people standing in this courtyard. so we'll be brief with this one. But look at that. We have the castle over behind the townspeople's homes. We have the rockwork and the waterfall, which look how that looks pushed back behind this red building that has those strong horizontal lines. This is the first time we've seen our world of like siding in quite a long time. Those strong sidelines are bringing your eyes into that. So many different textures, so many different roofs, so many different heights, just creating so much adventure that I could literally, yep, there's the Frozen Ever After. I knew it. This is just creating so much different scale that your mind just reads it as so much more than it is. There are so many phenomenal patterns throughout the Disney parks. Oh yeah. I'm assuming this is where we could get a pretzel. Look at this building though. Not only do I love that logo, but look at this handsome devil. Wow, that is great. Would have loved to, wow, look at that. Let's admire this carving in here. Whoa. So awesome. All right. It's cool to see that sort of look. Ah, my Thor joke plays out for me. All right, let's wander around the backside here. See, this area is not using the magic tricks we've talked about. It's a little bit looser. Got a little bit of framing there with that entryway. But this nearly doesn't have that same sort of scale or forced perspective because they just sort of placed everything around in this little cul-de-sac, this little half circle. I do really enjoy that horizontal creek rock there and then that sort of natural rock where you feel like this is man-made and then behind it is a natural rock. And then look how that's perfectly placed. That spire is perfectly placed for this roof, that tree, this tree, that's over there. None of this is an accident. This is exactly how it looked on an artboard. That precision framing is not an accident. That is what I love. Yeah, really loving these carvings and all the ornamentation on that building. All right, I have lost Spaceship Earth in my peripheral, so that means I must be close to wrapping this up. Got to be getting close. Friends, I hope you're enjoying this series, this walkthrough. I'm having so much fun taking you on this adventure with me and maybe explaining some things that you never quite thought about. One of the number one comments I get from my videos of I've been to Disneyland so many times, Bricky, and I never paid attention to that. Oh, hello. And that is always my goal in this, is to give you a deeper appreciation for the way the parks are. And if you are in the world of construction or architecture, keep in mind I am an amateur. So, you know, don't beat me up too bad in the comments. But I am loving this, but I am hating that. I wish that was more covered. But as we come up ahead of us here, we have another one of those buildings we've talked about, how Disney paints in sort of the shadows. I love this, how it recesses back into this little courtyard. I'm assuming this is a restaurant. Oh, hello, Mexico. One of my favorite places in the world, and definitely the home of my favorite food. Wow, look at that. Look at the scale. This is awesome. Oh, I am loving all of the storytelling and animals that have been carved into the side of it, as well as how this stair steps up. You can tell each one of those steps gets a little bit smaller. You know about the forced perspective. You're a Disney fan. But look at all this beautiful plant life over here on each side of it, really framing in the center of this building. That looks awesome. Love Mexico. Happy to see it get such a nice celebration in the World Showcase. It is interesting though. Think about that structure. Obviously, they needed a lot of room for the show building, for the attraction that exists in there, which I've been told is like small world for Mexico. So imagine if that building though was pushed back. It's like right on the edge of the main thoroughfare. If that building was pushed back further and there were a couple of huts out front or a couple of smaller structures, that would push that back even further. It looks like maybe I have found my way to the edge of World Showcase, which I would really like to do a video about, but I'm worried about how much time all of this is taking me because I don't go slow. This ends up being 3 parts. Oh, it's so beautiful. All right, let me push through and see if I've reached the end of today's 3rd part. And I hope, if you haven't seen part 1 and 2, I hope you go back, because I feel like this series will give you a better appreciation for Disney theme park design and help you maybe understand some of the things you felt before. Friends, I have made it to the edge of the World Showcase. I have completed my first lap, and my Walt, this was so enjoyable. I mean, this was so much fun walking around, looking at all these buildings, all these different areas of the world. It does make me really wish that Westcott would have been built where I live in California, because then it would have been in my backyard and I would have seen all of this like 700 times. However, it was very fun exploring it today for the first time and taking all of you with me in a 3-part series where we break down the design. Hey, let me know in the comments below. Did you enjoy this? Did you learn something new? Are there a couple things you're gonna look out for, or maybe tell your buds on your next EPCOT rip? And don't forget, all these design aesthetics that we talked about today, you'll see these in Magic Kingdom, Hollywood Studios, California Adventure, my home park of Disneyland. There's a rule to architecture that exists in the world that we live in. Disney just takes that design, those rules, and they bend them and buckle them to create a more fanciful world that we all want to come to and declare to be our happy place. Friends, from right where I started 2 hours ago, this has been my first ever lap around World Showcase. I'm so excited to take you with me. I hope you had fun. Leave a comment below and let me know if you had a good time. Maybe consider subscribing to the channel, and stay tuned for so much more Walt Disney World 50th anniversary coverage as I'm out here all week long trying to take you with me. Thank you so much for watching, and hey, it's both a small world and a big world. Big in its ideas and its construction, but small that we're all so similar. And this little lap around World Peace, that was a good lap.